What is going on, guys? MJ2005 Gundam here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Master Grade Gundam Barbatos from Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Now, first of all, I gotta show off the inner frame first because this thing just looks very nice on its own. And yeah, with all of the pegs and all the slits over here, it just adds to the look of the entire frame. Not that the frame is not detailed by itself, because it is extremely detailed. With all of the silver pistons and the gold plastic pieces, this thing just looks good right out of the box. And of course, I did put on all the decals that are supposed to be on the frame. Not that you could see any of them when the armor is on anyways, but I did put the extra effort in and put all the decals. That just basically shows that Bandai actually considered the Gundam frame to be a display option on its own. And I really like how all the power buttons are scattered around the frame. So obviously you do have the one on the hatch, you do have the ones at the back, and through more of a detailed observation, you can try and find more of the power buttons on the entire frame. But just looks good. Articulation is really just good, and probably the same as when the armor is going to be on. I'm not sure. This is halfway into the build. But one thing I got to do if you're trying to move this thing around without the armor is the arms over here. If you bend the lower joint first, it will actually dislodge the piston over here. So what I actually advise you to do is to bend the top joint first, then bend the bottom joint, and the piston is just in there, and it wouldn't have been dislodging it. And then of course you do have the waist over here. Fantastic piston movement. Even the neck joint with the dislodged pipes over here, which I really don't like, but I'm not going to see that with the armor on anyway. So yeah, but even the neck joint over here does have a piston joint. The waist over here entirely does have a piston joint that's moving over there. And then even the legs over here, triple jointed legs, has a piston, and then the feet has a piston. So it is very nice. It is extremely detailed, and I absolutely love it to bits. Honestly, if I do not like the Gundam Barbatos, but like the Gundam frame, it just throw this thing on the shelf and display it as it is, because it's detailed enough to just be displayed as a frame itself. But of course, the armor on this frame is definitely gonna look even better, and basically gives the Barbatos its identity. So let's just get right to that. So here we have the Master Grade Gundam Barbatos, fully armored up, with all the decals and with the gray panel lining job. And I have to say, this thing just looks astonishing. Like, it's not 100% anime accurate because I think the V-fin is way too long and that the front skirts are a little bit off. But either way, this thing is just stunning looking. Really, man, all the details that have gone into this kit just look fantastic. And I keep on thinking that people have been talking about whether or not a Master Grade Barbatos Lupus or a Barbatos Lupus Rex will be released in regular form, but I have to say, looking at this Master Grade, I grew more fond of the original design. Not because it is the original, but because this thing just looks good on its own. It is just right between the line of being overly ferocious and underwhelming. This is just the perfect balance. Of course, I would still modify the V-fin, because I'm not really too big of a fan. I like the no grade 1/100th looking of the V-fin, but all the rest of this is really nice. All of the colors here are replicated with plastic. These power buttons all over the body are replicated with clear pieces. And yeah, I finally opted to put on the metallic green stickers for the eyes, because the clear green piece that goes into the frame does not pop out the eyes enough. So I ultimately opted to go for the metallic green stickers just to pop out the eyes a little bit more. And of course, I did omit all of the Tekkadan stickers because, as I did say in the unboxing, I still believe that this thing should look as it is when it is in the Calamity War. As for exposure of the frame, on the back you do have a lot of it in the legs. And you, of course, you do have that iconic stomach over here, and also the arms, and also the top over here. But on the back, you do have a lot of pistons, however, you have been blocked by the backpack. This Majesty over here does not go without its flaws. Now, there's one I will talk about in a second with the weapons, but there is this one major thing. This shoulder armor over here has stressed. Let me take it off and show you what I mean. Now, this hook over here is stressed. The hook is at an awkward angle over here. Now, I do not know about the 1/100 scale, no grade, but as for all I know, I am a big fan of how the high grade actually hooks in the actual armor. It's like a directly facing up C hook, unlike this kind of a diagonal hook. Now, what that basically means is that there is kind of like awkward angles at where you apply force to the shoulder armor to make it move. And this thing's stressed unbeknownst to me, so I do not know why this thing is stressed. For some reason, this thing doesn't have any problems, but you do have to be careful with it. If you do not know where to apply force, you may accidentally snap the hook, and thus, the Gundam frame will be destroyed. But anyways, that is just one of the issues. Everything on this kit is just solid as hell. Like, really, really solid, and really, really good looking. All the details are there without any necessity of painting, and just the panel lining pops it out way more. Articulation wise, it's not really too hindered with the armor. So first of all, the head is still on the ball joint at the top over here, and you do have a neck joint which actually moves the piston in here. But now that the armor is actually on, you really cannot see the piston until you remove the backpack. The arms, they can flip out like this, and then as you can see, dual piston movement. The shoulder armor, as you guys know already, this thing is messed up. And then the arms can go out that far, really far. It can basically raise its arm. I'm going to leave that shoulder armor off for now because it's being a nuisance. Rotation above the elbow. And the arms can bend on a double joint, just like so. And of course you do have the piston movements inside. And this piece of armor can actually move to accommodate for the bending of the arm, which is pretty nice. And then the wrists over here, they can rotate on a peg. And then they do have a knuckle joint, like so. And they do have a second knuckle joint, which points the arm down. Perfect for melee poses. The thumb itself is independent. And basically that's about it. And then the waist and stomach over here. The waist is on a single peg right down here. So the flower roast is definitely possible because you can rotate this thing 180 degrees if you know where to grab. So here we go. The flower roast is definitely possible, and I hear that it won the Master Grade poll. So next Master Grade, Iron Blooded Orphans Gundam flower roast, not sure. I'm definitely gonna paint that thing, by the way. And then you still have some stomach tilting, so of course you do have the really, really nice piston movement. And then you have the front to back tilt, which does move a piston behind here, which you can't really see with the backpack on. Front skirts are separate, side skirts can move upwards, but they can also rotate as they are thrusters. The back skirts, they can move out of the way. And then the legs over here, they are independent. What do I mean by that? They are independent to themselves. So they have a tilting joint that can allow them to move up and down, independent to each leg. So you can get some absolutely wacky poses if you want to. And then the legs can go forwards like that, backwards like that, outwards like that, all the way in every direction. Rotation above the hip. It's not really too much. You don't really get like 180 degree rotation, which is fine. A double jointed knee, and some of the piston movement has actually been covered up right there. There's the piston over here. It's really just covered up by the armor, but this is not the only amount of, it just shifted by itself. So if you shift this piece of back armor down, you can actually achieve more articulation with the leg. So altogether, that. And then the leg thrusters over here can rotate. The ankles over here, they can have a panel over here that can move. The toes can point down, and then they can go up and down like so, and it triggers another piston to move. And if you have the side to side, it is limited due to the piston over here colliding with the armor, but if you just tilt it back, then you can achieve like almost the full range of ankle movement. And then the backpack over here, you have a moving thruster. So that's it for the articulation of the Master Grade Gundam Barbatos. I have to say it is very, very good. Like, of course, you do need to keep in mind of when the pistons will actually dislodge from their sockets, especially the ones in the arms. But altogether, the articulation is fantastic and really, really nice to look at. So for gimmicks, first of all, you do have the opening cockpit. So you actually just tip this thing forward and slightly tip the white piece forward, and basically you have the opening cockpit. But if you do want to see Mikazuki sitting in there, you can open this up Barbatos Lupus Rex style. I am so sorry for the jump cut, but I actually forgot that this thing does come with a 1/100 Mikazuki figure. Now, get it to stand on the palm. There we go. And then, as for hands, you first of all do have these open hands, but you do get parts for closed fists. Now, I'm not actually a fan of these, so what you need to do is to basically tear off the open fingers and swap it out for the fists. Now, I'm not a fan of these because, yeah, the thumb just sticks out like a sore thumb. There is no detail on the top of it to basically tell you the where the finger joints are, and they just do not look good in my opinion. Of course, it is good if you want to give a thumbs up, but that's about it. It's not really clenched fists. I don't know what to say about these things. They look good as a thumbs up gimmick, but it's just about that. The fists do not look good, in my opinion. But of course, you do get some holding finger parts right here. So let's get on to the weapons now. First of all, we have the iconic Mace. And I have to say, this thing just looks deadly in my opinion. I like the decal over here. Basically showing that the handle is telescopic over here, which is pretty nice. Looks very deadly, looks very detailed. And yeah, it's just good. Unfortunately, the handle is not fully telescopic, so you really cannot recreate the pose in the box art, where the handle is kind of retracted to the second notch over here. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but not enough to actually denote this weapon. Now, what you need to do to hold this thing is to actually, there's grooves over here, so these things can fit in. These kind of a protrusion. So there's actually 3 fixed points where you actually can hold the mace. So you put them in. It's not really actually fully socketed in, so you actually kind of had to help it and plug the finger parts back onto the arm and feed the thumb around it. So here we have the Barbatos holding its mace, and yeah, as you can see for the thumbnail, it can actually hold it with 2 hands. However, it is actually really heavy. Like, all the mechanics in there I can understand, but yeah, if you lift the shoulder armor away from it, it is actually very, very heavy. Like, it could hold it up, sure, but the rotation joint on the arm over here is not strong enough to support the mace. So if you're going for like a dashing pose over here, it will droop. So you need to kind of have external support just to have like a dashing pose. Like, even the dashing pose that is shown in the preview images, where it is going to be worse because it actually holds the mace right down here. So the weight issues are going to get even more immense. Thus, yeah. So imagine if the 6th form with the wrench mace, or the Barbatos Lupus Rex with the ultra large mace. This issue is just gonna show its face no matter what. So if the original Barbatos cannot hold its mace up with the rotational joint over here, there is no hope in hell that the Barbatos Lupus Rex will be able to hold up its ultra large mace. At least it is not as bad as the 1/100 no grade, so there's still hope in it, but it's just this one single joint that is bugging me. So yeah, it's nice looking, but it bugs me a lot that this thing kind of hold up its mace with the one joint, and yeah, this sometimes happens. So what do you do to the swords is basically bring in an adapter right here. I never really bothered to clean adapters up, so never mind me. Now you basically socket it in to, let me see where I want to socket this, because I didn't want it to be close to the leg. There we go. Socket this in and then just slide it down to lock the mace into place. It's not really 100% locked in, but it's solid enough. Now what you want to do with the backpack, let me do this on the left side, is to open it up first of all to give you some clearance, bring out the gray pieces, close it back up, and then basically slot these 2 grooves into the backpack. Now the mace is stored. And did I forget to mention that it has a functioning pile bunker? Because I did. But the mace is not all there is to offer, because if you have it stored, you can still pull out 2 of the blades of the mace head over here to function as mini blades, which is very, very nice. So here we have it. The Barbatos holding one of the blades from its mace. And then next up, we have the longsword. This is basically the enhanced version with the extra hilt over here. Now you can actually recreate the original version by just removing the hilt, which does not look half bad, but I do prefer to have a little bit of an accent. And I really like the gray panel lining over here that I did. It really brings it out. So you basically just allow it to hold it in the hand. Now this is way more solid because the grooves are actually made to go into the hand right here. It's not going to fall out. Not anytime soon. And here you have it. It is light enough so it will not weigh down the entire mobile suit. And also it is just awesome looking. So to store it, it's the same way you store the mace. So you just basically slide this thing in like so, and then just slide it back onto the backpack, and now the long sword is stored. Really, really nice. And then last but not least, we have the Smoothbore gun. Now this thing just looks fantastic, man. With all the details in there and the two-tone color with the white over there, it's just really, really nice to look at. It also has a metallic green sticker for the hexagonal scope. And to basically store it is the same way, but you do not need any adapters. So you bring out the ports over there and actually just slide it in. Just like so. Really, really nice. And to open it up, you basically open up the backpack over here. It does have a piston inside, so you can actually move it. But the notch that is at the end of the piston is not enough to basically stop it from falling out when you use too much force, so be careful. And the arm is on a hinge over here, and also a hinge at the base. And of course you can adjust the height of the arm by sliding it down. So there we go. And now we bring out the Smoothbore gun, and you push out the barrel over here. It's basically slotted into this port over here, and then you rotate the barrel towards the front, and excuse me, and then just put it in. You don't need to push anything in, you don't need to do that whatsoever. And then you basically adjust the machine gun over here to however you want. Now getting this thing into the hand is a little bit finicky, but I'm gonna try to do it. You have two slots over here that goes into the grooves into the hand. And yeah, replugging this thing back onto the arm is basically the most finicky part of it all, because it's at an awkward angle. So I'm gonna be back when I finished it. So here we have it. The Smoothbore gun being held by the Gundam Barbatos. And since there is so many joints working in unison, it is hard to basically get everything in the perfect place, but eventually you will get it to work. So that's all the accessories for the Gundam Barbatos. And there's a stand provided over here that you can basically slide into the crotch. Like so. It is very tight, unlike the Unicorn Gundam Perfectibility Master Grade, so you guys do not need to worry about that. But I do not have a Master Grade action base, aka an action base 4, so I really cannot display this thing up in the air. So for comparisons, first of all, let's bring in the high grade version of the Gundam Barbatos. Now the backpack is messed up, everything is messed up, but yeah, look at this puny thing. Look at this puny, underwhelming thing, except for the head. I really like the head of this thing. That's why I'm not really too big of a fan of the Master Grade head. But just look at this thing. This thing is way more underwhelming compared to its Master Grade variant. And if you just take a look at the mace, even half of the mace is enough to just overpower the high grade mace. So the Master Grade is the superior one. I don't have the rest of the 1/100s, but this is definitely my favorite. But of course, if you have a Master Grade, you have to compare it to the TR6 Heisenflay 2, which is, man, still goddamn taller than the Barbatos. Oh man. This ridiculously big that thing is. So I'm not really surprised at this size, because it's gonna fit in with the Advanced Zeta crowd really, really easily. You're not going to even tell that this is a 1/100 scale. But anyways, that's it for the Master Grade Gundam Barbatos. So what do I think of this kit? Well, it looks awesome. The extra effort is worth it in my opinion. And you can just display the frame on its own, which is 1+ for me. And then the armored up version is definitely more sexy looking. I rarely use that word, and that is literally how much I like this kit. However, the kit doesn't come without its flaws, like the inability to support its mace, albeit with the yeah, that is one of the issues as well. So the awkward placed clip on the shoulders is really an issue that we need to basically look into. And of course, albeit the mace cannot be supported by the rotational joint, it's still an issue. So I do not know if it is on mine only. So if you guys have your own Master Grade Gundam Barbatos, feel free to tell me in the comments below. Other than that, it is really just a fascinating kit, and I just really cannot stop my praise for it. So with all of that said, with no bias, because I was going to give it a 9 out of 10, this is going to come in at an 8 out of 10. It is far beyond average, but it is kind of just out of reach of perfection. Let me tell you that much. So yeah, these two problems aren't really too big of a deal. Well, the shoulder armor is definitely a big deal, because if you break the clip, then it's nothing. Then it's no more. You're gonna have a stationary shoulder if you glue that on. But then the arm joint over here is not really too big of an issue, because you can actually just apply a little bit of glue, apply a little bit of coating to the joint, and it can actually support the mace. But anyways, the finickiness of this thing is not enough to warrant it a 7 out of 10, because this thing, it looks amazing, it plays amazingly, and most important of all, it's just a great master grade in my opinion. So that's about it. I would definitely recommend you guys to get your own Gundam Barbatos, because isn't this thing just one of the best among the Barbatos kits out there? So that's it for me. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you did like it, please be sure to drop a like, comment, and also subscribe for more Gunpla reviews, Gunpla news, and all that kind of stuff. Subscribe to the featured channels on my channel page if you haven't, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out, guys. Bye bye.